I ended the war. My baby hand came up and I said, stop this, stop the violence.
Okay.
Mum walks into a library. She says, have you got any books on turtles? The librarian goes, hardbacks. And he goes, yeah, little heads. It's good, isn't it?
Hello, welcome to Ink in the Eyes, the first, hopefully, video edition.
If this is just audio, it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Today we are discussing Persepolis by, this is where you jump in.
Oh, I was going to say, today we are discussing Persepolis, then, by Marjane Satrapi, which I've definitely pronounced wrong because I can't speak Farsi. I can't even speak English or French. So, original language is French. Published by L'Association. In volume 1, comes out in the 2000s. Goes from 2001, 2002, 2003 in 4 volumes. What do you know about the comic?
I read it. It was a banned book. It was the second on the American Library Association's most frequently challenged books.
Ooh.
And the author said,
do you know why is that? I
take the book's banning as a huge compliment.
Yeah, I think I would have heard about that.
She wrote that in 2023, the English edition had its 20th anniversary. And she wrote that in the foreword. Yes. Why was it banned? So, according to the article NPR did on the 20th anniversary, it was initially brought to... It was in Chicago where it was first challenged, and it was due to its graphic language and images because of the torture scenes. And it was in a 7th grade curriculum, which, for all the non-Americans, is, oh God, I don't know, like between 11 and 13-ish, depending on when your birthday is.
So maybe year 6 is that here?
Oh, yeah. We're like 1 either above or below you guys, but I forget.
I think that is, around that. Yeah, sounds about right. So yeah, still quite old enough to know torture and to know... Because the graphic imagery is not... We'll get more into the art style, but the do you think because it's Iranian has something to do with it as well?
Absolutely.
I
don't know what was going on in 2014.
Oh, we'll get into it.
Or what the incident, because it also depends what group banned things. Like, I know where I live, there was a ultra-Christian group who started banning a lot of LGBTQ books in the schools here. I don't even think they were based here. They just, our county is in the news a lot, and so they took a special interest. So it also depends, like, what group decided to ban it, but I do suspect there was some racism involved, because not a good history between our two countries. Before you get into it, I found a quote by the author that I liked a lot on Iranian and American relations. And she said, the world is not divided between East and West. You are American. I am Iranian. We don't know each other, but we talk and we understand each other perfectly. The difference between you and your government is much bigger than the difference between you and me. And the difference between me and my government is much bigger than the difference between me and you. And our governments are very much the same.
I think that's a great quote. I think that's pretty much spot on historically of what's cracking on, especially as we go more into it. I do get a lot of memes about that at the moment of like Americans being like, But
God.
Iran is because some senator was like, I can't remember who, forgive me, but some senator was like, it's full of religious fanatics. And the Americans are like, that is one thing we don't have here. And then it'll cut to like Trump with the Christians, or like this child being carrying a cross and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, we have that here. Yeah, so that's but no, I think that's fairly. I always think that with the British, when people discuss like, oh, Britain in a nutshell, and like, oh, the British Empire and stuff, it's like most people in Britain were not a part of that. It was like a ruling class and a soldieress. Yeah. Forgive me, my phone's on loud for some reason.
Goodness.
Oh my goodness, he's so unprofessional. So, as you said, it was translated into English. Pantheon Books took it on in 2003. It was split up into two things: the story of a child, which is when she's in Iran, which is like 1 and 2 of the original ones. That's in 2003. You look like you're about to say something, but I'm going to say, "In the Dawn of the Return" is 2004. Go on.
No, I messed
Hit
up
me with your
the
fact.
video. I don't have a fact.
So it wins many awards, some in French that I'm not even going to try and pronounce for the sake of everybody listening. Prix France Info in 2001. Numerous literary and comic awards worldwide. It has been made into a film, which has been directed by Marjane Satrapi as well, and Vincent Pernal. Cannes Film Festival. It won the jury prize. That was in 2007, and it was nominated for an Academy Award of the Best Animated Feature. Now, you're going to ask me next, what won the award on 2007 Academy Award? And I don't actually know, so you can do a little live Google. What's going to tell you some more things about?
2007.
It was a banned evil book in 2014, and yeah, I've got your same quote as you saying it was the same one. 2007. Go on, my love. Well, you're finding it. I'm going to carry on with the historical settings.
There's a lot of winners.
Not for animated. There's one Academy Award winner.
Okay. I wasn't given enough direction. Ratatouille!
Oh, Ratatouille won.
Wow, it was very French.
I mean, that is a very good film, to be fair. It's not
I
as
saw that
poignant.
in theaters with, I don't know where my parents were, but my grandparents were watching us, and they took us to see Ratatouille.
It's very good. And very good for 2007 as well, because the animation is that still holds up today. Excellent. Well, congratulations, Ratatouille.
Thank you.
What do you remember from the story?
From Ratatouille?
No, you Burke, from Persepolis.
It is about it's autobiographical, and it's her as a child. I believe she was 10 when, you said yes. She's 10 when the revolution breaks out, and her parents are quite liberal, quite well educated, and against a lot of the changes, but even with that, they still had to keep that kind of secret and protest in, not secret because that kind of defeats the point of a protest, but
safely protesting, I suppose you'd say. Yeah.
And have meetings with like-minded people kind of in secret.
Yeah. She then moves to Vienna, and then she returns later on in life.
Well, does she go to France?
She goes to France and Vienna. So the characters are herself, Marjane. You said she's a lead. It's semi-autobiographical, autobiographical. She's bred into an intellectual middle-class household in Tehran. She's 10 when the revolution happened, so this starts when the revolution begins. Ebi, her father, who's an engineer, he's progressive, as you said, anti-authoritarian. There's a mother, she's politically active, in particular to women's rights. But like, they're not probably to the same amount that like your parents are. Do you know what I mean? They're politically active, but they're not like violent demonstrators.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like a normal middle class kind of politically active household. It's not like they're like, insanely. The only person that kind of is her uncle, Anush. He's Marxist. When Iran changes from the Shah, which will go into the Iranian Revolution, a lot of the Marxists hailed this as like, the Ayatollah will be. Khomeini will be like pro our movement. Spoiler alert, he isn't by a long shot. There's also a grandmother who's like a love in her, like a big love in her life, and then an imaginary friend, which is God.
That was fun.
And that shows her relationship with God, which changes throughout the book. So, where this title comes from, do you know? Persepolis? It's all right if you don't.
Yes. No, it's Greek. Just say yes or no.
It is a Greek origin to the
polis,
word.
like Acropolis is a meeting place. So I think polis is city or meeting. And I want to say it goes back to Mesopotamian times.
Well done.
Because the Middle East too was kind of that a very rich area for very early civilization.
Exactly. So the Levant is like the cradle of our civilization. So Ethiopia up to the Levant, around Iraq, Syria. Yeah.
Is that what does Persepolis mean?
So you are correct. Persepolis gets this from a Greek word about the Achaemenid. I'm so bad at pronouncing things. So Achaemenid. Achaemenid. Anyway. The empire is founded in 550 BC by Cyrus. That's the empire. But the city is founded by Darius I in the 6th century.
We learned about him in school.
Yes. And we didn't. But you had a much more excellent education than I, as we've discussed. It was destroyed by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. Now, he sacked and burnt it to the ground, which sounds quite dramatic. However, I was watching a thing by a historian called Raoul Kneindijk. Flawless pronunciation there. For those of you who don't know him, as I'm assuming you don't because you didn't look at, he is the ditch historian.
The ditch historian?
So there's really funny viral videos of him talking about ancient warfare in film and the depictions of it. And it's some of it's fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, whereas some of it is actual depictions of historical things. And he's like, everybody just builds a wall, and then the people run their siege engines right up to the wall. And he's like, the first thing that a child would think of is to build a ditch, and then you build a wall, and then you build a ditch. And he's like, Jerusalem had 3 of these ditch wall kind of things, so that you can't get your siege engines in. Slows you down, and you have to traverse across it. So yeah, he's every single time he's where's your ditch, where's your ditch, where's your ditch, where's the ditch? And so when they come up to the frozen warriors in the Game of Thrones, the frozen zombie guys, he's like, you spent thousands of years looking after this, and all you've done is build a wall. You've not built a ditch or made this harder for anything else. So yes, he's a very funny historian, but he says that it's very normal. He's talking about Troy and the I can't remember who the king of Troy is from the sacking of Troy in the film, but he says to Agamemnon, please don't burn this place. And he's like, Raoul Kneindijk is I don't know why he would say this, because that would be totally normal, that he'd wipe this slate clean. It's situated on the Iranian plateau, Zagros Mountains, and between Zagros Mountains and the Caspian Sea. The ancient empire went all the way from the Balkans to the Indus Valley. It is a unisect. The city itself is a unisect. Historical interest. Yeah, exactly.
UNESCO.
There's sphinxes that are bull, eagles, and human, as opposed to cat, lion, human. That you would think of in ancient Egypt, so they're a bit different.
Bald eagle head, human body,
human face, wings, bull body. So the thoughtfulness of a human.
I know what a sphinx is, but I think
it would be funnier if it was human body and eagle. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what a lot of the Egyptian gods are. Animal head,
true.
Human body.
I've got some that I got from Egypt. There's 8 depictions, reliefs, of a lion fighting a bull, and the bull represents winter and the lion fighting spring. This has nothing to do with the comic. I just thought this was really interesting whilst I was doing my research. So it was a ceremonial capital, which doesn't really exist today. Would DC be No, DC wouldn't be a ceremonial capital. So it's kind of where the government is kind of somewhere else. It's a bit more of the centered powerhouse of it's made to be a display. It's made to be instead of growing like London or Rome, it kind of is an imperial might. I do have the capital of the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, could be one, and there's a city in the capital of the Azerbaijan, could be one as well. So the reason for this book's title is 1971. We have the Shah of Iran, who was a American and British puppet that we put in MI5. It's the first MI5 CIA
Collaboration.
collab.
Ugh.
It's the first. Well, no, it's not. It's not the first. It's seen as the turning point between. It's seen as like the turning point between MI6s being the strong to the CIA being the strongest. Like around this area, like the dominance of like secret services, CIA takes over and is like very much
Interesting.
the powerhouse. It's a celebration of the 2,500 year Persian Empire. Muhammad Pahlavi tries to make it. Now, this is very much seen as the downfall of the regime. It isn't, but it is kind of the symbolic downfall, if that makes sense. There's a lot of oppression that goes on. There's a lot of problems within Iran at this time. But he decides to throw a big party and spend a ton of money. And this goes down quite badly, as you can imagine. So basically, the British and US puppet to keep the oil fields out of Iranian hands. This is 1953, so this is post-war. Britain is fucked, as it will remain to be until current day. They overthrew a democratically elected leader. Fun fact: Iran changed its name in 1935 to Iran from Persia. It means the land of Aryans.
What year?
35.
Oh, okay. So before the revolution.
Far before the revolution. The German foreign minister was very on board with this, which is interesting.
Who was on board with this?
The German foreign minister. I remember hearing that. However, it wasn't to do with Nazism, and the Aryans is a really interesting part because they misused it and misappropriated the term, much like they misused and misappropriated the swastika. It comes from. This is also a fun fact. Comes from a 18th century idea that we being Indo-Europeans come from like Iran and not from India, not from like
that's
Romania
what the word
like that.
Aryan.
So yes, and then they swapped it round. So the Nazis basically swapped it round, where they said that it went the other way round, and the Aryans were.
For the Nazis.
We start like. The original story was Nordics, Germanic, and then it moved down, which is completely unfounded. However, there was a Johann Blumenbach, and he's the reason why Americans call white people Caucasians, because he was the number one. He was like the first proponent of this idea that like white people started in Caucasia.
Oh, so that's
where you get it from. So the main backstory of this book is the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, the year of my birth.
Wow. So you remember it happening?
I ended the war. My baby hand came up and I said, stop this, stop the violence.
Okay.
It was a horrendous war. 500,000 dead, 2 million casualties. Iraq invaded Iran. Because of it went for a territory grab on oil, but also Saddam was very worried about the Iranian Revolution spilling over into his country and revolution kind of coming over. So he kind of very much like pressed down on it. It's a very trench warfare, so it was like World War One, which is why it was quite horrendous in casualties. Saddam was using chemical weapons, and the Iranians were using a technique called human wave attacks, which Britain and Germany used in World War One, which is basically you get kids, 17, 18-year-olds, you give them a gun, and then you get them to run at the enemy quickly. And maybe they run out of bullets, maybe they don't.
Aw.
So yeah, it was pretty horrendous. Supporting Iraq, we've got Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, France, United States indirectly, and the Soviet Union, and Libya and Syria are supporting Iran. I wanted to just talk about that. The next part, the historical context. So we've got the ancient version, the 70s for historical context, and the 80s of the backbone of what happens here, because it's quite a brutalist view of growing up in a country that is war, even though you're not on the front lines. Is that when this is published in 2001, this is the central period of reform. In 1997, Mohammad Khatami is elected, and he pushes for open press, more freedom of speech. In the 2000s, there is a firm student protests. So I feel that this has kind of come out at the right time, was written and created within that. It's only in the 2000s, basically when this comes out, or when this finishes publication, maybe early 2000s, I can't remember the exact date, that the conservatives like clap back hard, and it becomes a mental religious society that it is today. But there was that peak wave, which I think this kind of very beautifully brackets, where it was a little bit more open and things were starting to modernize in our sense. Any questions?
No.
So we'll continue. The drawing and the art style is I hate it when you're really sad. I think it's really nice when you're like chatting and asking questions, and now I can actually see your face, whereas normally it's like I'm chatting to myself in a quiet room. So it's simplistic, cartoonist, monochromatic style, as you can see. Yeah, I know you've read it, but for the audience, you should be buying this anyway because it's excellent, or getting it from your local library. Manchester City Library has it, although
people are going to come looking for you.
Does not have it at the moment because
I
have it in my hand. It's in my house. The art style is supposed to be childish. It's supposed to be written by a 10-year-old narrator, so she wanted to use quite an easy hand. As the book continues, it does get slightly more detailed. Not much, but slightly more.
The art style?
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's because it came out in 4 issues?
Probably it's the mix of the two. Is that she's aging in the as a narrator, and she's probably getting better. Although she's a very good. We'll talk about her as an artist. So my literary analysis is reminding me of The Kite Runner. If we want to do some comps, if we want to do some comparative literature, very good book. It talks about it's basically a very similar story of like leaving Afghanistan when the Soviets invade, growing up in America, and then returning back to, and it's under the idea of that's the kind of backdrop. So it's about like war, displacement, and finding yourself in a new place. But he also adopts a child.
The Persians.
The Persians I've not read.
It was either longlisted or shortlisted for the Women's Prize fiction, and it's about 5 women in one family. So like the grandmother, 2 of her daughters, and then 2 granddaughters. And they split. So half of them went to America during the Revolution, and the grandmother and one of the granddaughters stayed in Iran. Story about family gossip, but you also kind of get the way their beliefs about the world split a little bit because of the 2 different countries they're living in.
Yeah, interesting. There's massive protest here actually at the moment. You see a lot of, I sent you a picture, didn't I? You see a lot of the original Iranian flag, like the yellow lion with the green, gold, and red, and a lot of people protesting pro-war.
Yeah, someone at work told me they were talking to someone who identified as Persian, and she was like, "Yeah, we're glad they took him out." However, I feel like these countries who took him out don't have a good history about just leaving and
what to do next.
A fair election.
The best idea would have been like getting like SEAL Team 6 or whatever they're called to like get rid of, do you know what I mean? Like the Osama bin Laden kind of vibe, as opposed to all out war
Yeah.
because it's just gonna foster more violence and
More violence.
yeah,
Economic
more
hardship.
violence, economic hardship for everyone.
Violence for them, which
More
is
for them.
a lot worse.
A lot worse.
I have another
And
comp.
go on, because I've got another one as well.
Okay, you can go first.
The Reluctant Fundamentalist.
I don't know what
About a man
that is.
it's a very good book. A man who leaves Pakistan, is educated in America, is very well educated, and he returns back to Lahore in Pakistan. And this is all from memory, so give me some rope. He basically is talking to somebody that you think is possibly an MI5 agent, but is an American anyway. MI5, what we're talking about? CIA agent. It'd be MI6 anyway, because MI5 is the ones that watch us. CIA agent, and it's basically how he becomes quite a fundamentalist, anti-Western, even though he's educated in the West. And that was released 2007, so when the Iraq War was kind of happening. And
so there was a book called The Fundamentalist that was nominated for the Women's Fiction Prize at the same time as The Persians. I didn't read it, but we know someone who did, and she was a little bit disappointed because she was like, I forget what she said, but they didn't really get into the woman. The main character was someone who worked with deprogramming girls who were like escaping that regime, and like that's such an interesting job, and they just didn't really go into it at all. They just went into her radicalizing, which I think is a spoiler, but I saw it coming from a mile away.
Oh yeah, The Reluctant Fundamentalist. I've changed this. I've spoiled as well, but it's a really good book. You should read it. It's very short.
My other comp, I bet, is even shorter than yours. It's The Wall.
Oh, straight from the bat.
By Peter.
Love it.
Something. Growing up behind.
Oh, I've got this.
This book?
I've got it written down in the comps.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it down. You didn't do that.
Oh, so you did put a sentence. Okay, cool.
I wrote down, you read my other notes earlier, too.
What notes did I read?
Banned evil books.
Oh, I thought I wrote that.
You did not.
Okay.
That while you were struggling to get your mic to work.
Fair enough.
I thought you actually
had
this book.
I've not read The Wall, so I didn't know why I'd put it on here, because I've obviously read the guy right. Do you know what? I sometimes am surprised. Surprise myself. I'll take credit for anything. So tell me about this wall that I recommended.
So it's my library every year gives out a free book that talks about a different culture, or like be it mental health issues, or this is about someone who grew up in the Czech Republic when it was behind the Iron Curtain. And it's kind of a similar, now he's another illustrator, so it's like lots of pictures and then text in the margins, but he's a child growing up as an artist and trying to be very creative in his expression in the Soviet Union, which is anti-fun and creativity. And so Persepolis is about her being a child and having these liberal views. And then this is the same.
Growing up in a liberal vibe, yeah. So talking of art style, great segue.
Thank you.
It reminded me of, now, again, I'm going to say a name incorrectly right now. Amarili Hashemi. I'm going to go with that. He lives and works in Tehran. I think he was inspired by this as opposed to the other way around, because his work comes out later.
Oh yeah.
He trains as a graphic designer, and have you seen his work, The Parties? So The Parties is basically like a middle class, normal families having parties that are against. So like they're not wearing the hijab, they're wearing open hair, and like there's women and women.
They talk about that in The Persians.
Yeah. So those kind of things that they talk about in The Persians, he takes photographs of them, but he like whites or blacks out the silhouette. So they do kind of look a little bit like
Ghosts.
the pictures in here. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. Like, do you know what I mean? They're kind of that one block color of a person, so there's no identifying features. But occasionally he'll like draw in a moustache of a man's, or like keep the hair like very prim and proper. His work has been interpreted very differently. It could be to do with the hijab, censorship, women's rights, or Islam. Yeah, so I saw his work in the V&A when that was on, and in the V&A website they still have examples of it, even though it's not in the
the one I just
main
found
gallery
was
anymore.
from the V&A.
From the V&A, yeah, you see what I mean? It has that
Yeah.
very white and black. Yeah,
It does look cartoon. That's actually quite cool.
yeah.
I thought it was going to be
It
a little
reminded me of that a
haunting,
lot.
but
No, they look really cool. They're really good
Yeah.
images, and they kind of look like 70-esque, and yeah, it looks around this kind of time, 80s vibe. She said that she was inspired by Mouse. Now, obviously, the story is different and the illustration is different. So, what they kind of mean by that, from what I've been reading, is like the simplicity of characters. You can that you put yourself on the character, because there's no totally differentiating feature of a person. A person doesn't look like, if you had somebody with a big beard and like long hair, or like somebody very Iranian or very Islamic, you'd be like, oh, okay, well then that I put that man in that category. Whereas by having the simplistic illustrations in this of just white, black, monochromatic, and like in Mouse they have cats and Nazis, mice are Jews, you put yourself in, you can put yourself in there much easier, which I never really thought about with graphic novels, but is a really interesting point of like, if you make it too detailed, do you alienate yourself from like, does the reader characterize it? Not alienate, but like, more important when you're writing memoir, I suppose, because if you're writing a story, you want it to be different. You're following somebody's journey. Whereas if you're writing memoir, you kind of want to be behind, like on the shoulder of the person as they walk through the world. Yeah, so they're my two art vibes. That's all the notes I have, my dear friend.
I have a question for you.
Tell me all of your questions. I've been waiting for some questions.
So I saw a review that he said after she went to Austria, he thought her experience, that was the end of his investment in her, because, so he quotes, next to my father's distressing report, my Viennese misadventures seemed like little anecdotes of no importance, so I decided I would never tell them anything about my Austrian life. They suffered enough as it was. And he said, I think it's a he. It is a he. He stopped. He wasn't invested in her because her experience was like less important than if she had stayed in Iran. And I thought that was extremely unfair.
So he says that she should have stayed in Iran.
No. That he just lost interest in her as a character because her experience was less difficult, which I thought was strange, because she's like homeless for a little while in a foreign country.
When is, yeah, I mean, she like cuts off her hair, and yeah, when did he write that? Because this is an interesting point that we've talked about before, but when did he write that?
2008.
Okay,
so it was a long time ago.
2000.
The other thing I would say about it, when she was like using a lot of drugs and alcohol and felt quite alone and depressed in that time, that he was like, that's quite frivolous, which from a surface level, yeah, but she's also displaced from a war-torn country.
Yeah,
and like
she's displaced from a war-torn country, and also
using that as escapism, I think is
natural. Yeah.
I just thought it was quite a harsh review.
There's a huge problem with post-Vietnam War. A lot of war vets were maintained to addicted to opium because they'd seen stuff. They were sent out as kids and were so fucked up coming back that like, I know they were on the front line in the war, but like, it is an important point of being like displaced from family. You will probably turn to alcohol, and it's very understandable if you do, I would think. But also, it's a part of her story, and a fish out of water may sound like kind of frivolous, but like going from Iran to Vienna, I would imagine, is quite a culture shock. Of even if you're educated, middle class, and French speaking, it's quite a difference. And then being allowed to drink and smoke.
It's easy to go
weed.
Overboard.
Yeah, I would not think that was frivolous at all. I would think that was quite an interesting character of what happened.
And she
The
was
reason why I
close
asked
with
the
her
date.
family. And
Yeah.
so being away from that is hard.
Yeah, very much so.
And she was really young.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
my
I
question
think that's go on.
from that is, do you think it would have been a less impactful story if she was a lot older when the revolution started? Because a lot of the story and how it's told and how her worldview is shaped is because she's so young and quite naive through.
I mean, not putting words in her mouth, but she'd probably be in prison because, like, one of the key people in her story is Anush, her uncle, and he is a revolutionary. And like, I think it could have been very easily. I mean, I don't know. She obviously lived her life. I'm just pulling things out of the sky, but like, I think it would be very easy to, if she was older and had that teenage idea of like I was red as red could be when I was a teenager, like, and now I've changed more socialist as it is. So like, I think if as a teenager you're strong in your political outlook, aren't you?
And you're saying you're weak now? No, I think I'm stronger now than I was when a teenager in my.
Oh no, I was very much like anti borders. I was destroyed I was very like communist. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand borders. I don't really understand why we're so arsed about them. Like why I'm bothered to be British. I've done nothing to all the things that like, oh, but we're a nation of X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, but I did nothing of that. I was just born into it.
Well,
like,
our president wants to get rid of birthright citizenship, so none of us are American anymore.
That's weird. Does he understand that term or?
Yes. I didn't follow it intricately.
I would imagine he means it like what we mean it as. But how we do citizenship.
The Supreme Court might have gotten involved, and so I don't know how far it was and how much it was just talk. But the idea was a lot of people cross the border, so their children are born on American soil and then are American citizens. And he wanted to prevent that, but the way it was worded, anyone born in like even actual citizens are like, not that they're not citizens, but like, you know, people whose family have been here for a million years. Forever. Like, wouldn't be included. And I'm sure in his mind, if he can make us all pay for it, he would.
True. Oh, it's a scam. It's a racket. This is the thing with nation and visas and all this kind of thing. As you know firsthand yourself, like it's an absolute racket. It's like thousands of pounds for nothing. It's a racket. That's the reason why we have it. Like, it's not to be like, oh, we need to protect the NHS or oh, we need to protect this and that or our morals or our cultural.
I mean, to be fair, the NHS like surcharge I had to pay with my visa is less expensive than what I would pay in healthcare for a year here.
So it should be you pay by your taxes. I'm pro NHS through and through. I still am. I still have my socialist streak, so the NHS is the best thing. It's the only jewel in our failing crown.
That's what I'm saying. Like that. I mean, I kind of get, but yeah, because we have to pay lots absorbent amounts for healthcare anyway. So The one interesting fact is, do you know who Charlie Munger? Maybe he's said this before. Do you know Charlie Munger? He was Warren Buffett's right-hand man, multi-billionaire. Okay. And he was at the start saying that America's healthcare is too expensive. And he was like, it's in the hands of people who will never give it up. But he was like, I am dying, because he was dying at this point. He was in his 90s, and he was like, this is costing me a fortune, and I'm a billionaire. Like, what do you? Well, so
there is no getting out of like what's going on here.
All of Trump's economic policies are benefiting older people because that's who voted for him, and so there's a widening wealth gap and like a disproportionate and growing disproportion of like where the wealth is, and it's all the old people. And I was watching a girl, she's an economist, and she was like, so the thought is that this wealth will be inherited by the younger generation, except healthcare costs are so expensive, so that's all going to get eaten up by
healthcare.
Yeah. So there was one other thing I was going to say, but I've forgotten. Oh, when the CEO was assassinated, and we were all like, I mean, that man's murdered millions of people through preventing them from getting policies. And the news was kind of surprised that everyone was like, yeah, why would we think this was wrong? That man has
There's a really
ruined
interesting
so
one
many
about the
people's
new,
lives.
but there was a really interesting one in the news recently when it was like, oh, it was kind of insinuated of like British people not wanting to go to war and like, would you fight for your country kind of thing. And they were kind of surprised to being like, wait, why do you not want to die for your country? Because we still have this idea of the Blitz mentality where like we go off and we fight the Nazis and what have you. And it's like, because it's fucking Iraq, they couldn't. Firstly, we've got no money to feed ourselves. We're not the British Empire anymore. Secondly, fuck off. Thirdly, all politicians here are rubbish. Like, it is amazing how stupid the politicians are. Like, incredibly. At least in America, you have one or two. You have a lot of idiots, but like here, it is wall to wall stupid. Like, there's no one. Like, it's impressive. Vote Green. So the reason why I asked the date of the review is because I think this is a really interesting thing with literature at the moment, and we've spoken about this possibly on this, possibly just privately, of the idea of raising the stakes, and you've got to raise the stakes, you've got to keep on raising the stakes, adds to a literature where it kind of becomes comically bad for the individual, and you kind of lose your reader because you're like, oh, and another thing's happening, and another bad thing's happening, and another bad thing's happening. It's like, okay, well,
that was not the opinion of my creative writing professor. He told us
it's very en vogue. It has been for a while. Of like, and we've discussed like A Little Life is the key of that, isn't it? Which is like bad things keep on coming. Like, I think that's the zenith point of the
like early drafts, and probably a lot of not expert writers. I don't want to say beginner writers, but like people who haven't made a career out of it probably err on the side of being too nice to their characters. That I suspect.
Yes, I think I do sometimes.
The bigger issue.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want it to be boring, but you don't want to just keep on raising the stakes for no reason. Yeah. And so the idea of why I was asking is like, it would do that with that man have been happy if she'd gone to prison and got tortured and like a different thing from her own memoir. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's too easy for the character, it's like, well, it's not really. Like, you moved to Vienna and live there. It's quite difficult to speak another language and be in another city. And I'm Western European, like they're West European as well. Like, our cultures aren't that different. Whereas Iranian to Western Europe would be
insane.
Yeah.
I read it when I was in my master's program, so kind of after I'd moved, not right after I moved, but I think I connected with it a lot more because like England and the US are not all that different. Same language. Like London is
I think we only share a language though. Yeah, true.
Of all the places in the world I could have moved, like
it's
quite quaint compared to, as you said, Iran too.
That's true. That's true.
But like it is, being that far from family is difficult, and I was like a good 10 years older than her. And
during a modern era where we could discuss on different continents, where
and like I could just video call live. Whenever.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think, but you still get that confusion of sometimes when you say something and like you get a different reaction, or just not understanding certain things and not really knowing why, and that kind of homesickness I did understand a bit, connected with. And again, I'm not comparing my experience to hers, but
no, but that's the beauty of fiction, isn't it? Is that you empathize with another person, you find the commonality between a complete stranger.
I don't think if I read it at 13 I would have liked it as much.
I don't think it's written for a 13-year-old audience. I think it's written for an older audience.
7th grade feels a bit young, but I mean, you want to expose kids to different cultures and
absolutely.
And like she was quite young when she lived it, so
yeah, true.
However, I do think being older, I understand.
But you and I are from very different educational background, should we say? So I wouldn't have. I think I had quite a world view when I was young, but I didn't know much about the Middle East.
There's a fairly large Middle Eastern population where I live too.
See, where I grew up, it was more in Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistan. But none of them were born there, so none of them are American. Go on.
What are you saying now?
Yeah, I was just reciting the Trump thing. You're about to ask me another question.
No. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't have anything else to say about it.
We've been chatting for an hour.
Excellent. I think we've gone through everything. Thank you for listening to Ink in the Eyes.
Thank you for listening.
Right.
Please remember to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends.
Thank you for listening, and goodbye.